Welcome to another episode of Pizza Class. Today we're taking a field trip to a restaurant distributor so I can talk to you about pizza baking equipment for your home kitchen. There are lots of different choices and many things to consider. So I think the best place to go will be to the restaurant store near my home. There I'll explain different pieces of equipment and why you may or may not want to purchase them. Let's take a little walk. So today we're taking a field trip to the restaurant store. They have physical stores for restaurant supply in Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Maryland, but you can buy everything we're going to talk about today at therestaurantstore.com. Inside they have lots of pizza equipment and essential pieces of stuff that we're going to be using for baking pizza at home. So let's take a look inside. So we're inside the pizza aisle of the restaurant store, and we're going to talk about some of the equipment you may need for making pizza at home. We're going to start with dough preparation. So we take a look at the aisle here. We've got a number of things I want to point out. First of all, when you're preparing your dough and you have your dough balls ready, you need to store them in the refrigerator for 24 to 48 hours to get the best fermentation and long rise. And so we talk about that in a lot of our other videos. Here we have containers that are made specifically for holding pizza dough. And the dough ball goes in there and has a lid, which you can place directly in your refrigerator, and it does a great job. They're stackable, so you can have a bunch of these if you're making large batches of dough. If you are making large batches and you have a lot of space in your refrigerator, you may want to consider these, which are trays designed to hold lots of dough. So this is for people who are pretty serious about making pizza and making a lot of it at once, but these are designed to be stackable as well. Of course, mostly used in restaurants, but they could be good at home as well. Okay, another piece of useful equipment that you might find helpful in your kitchen is a dough cutter during dough preparation. It's not much more than a straight metal blade and a handle, but these can be used to cut your dough balls into pieces, and I also find them very useful for cleaning off countertops. So it's an inexpensive investment and well worth the money. Okay, when you're making thin style pizza, you often have to dock the dough, which means poking holes in it basically. That eliminates bubbles, and it also keeps the dough from springing too much in the oven. If you're after a thin crackery crust, you can use a tool called a dough docker, and they sell them here. This is what it looks like. It's basically a roller with pins on it, and that allows you to roll across the crust and pokes holes in the crust before you top the pizza. If you can't afford a docker, you can also use a fork. Okay, an essential part of making good pizza dough is making it the right way every single time. And to do that, you really need to make sure you're weighing your ingredients. So a pizza scale or a dough scale is a very important piece of your equipment arsenal. And here at the restaurant store, they have several kinds. This is an analog scale. There's no digital circuitry in this one, but it's a really accurate scale. You can do your dough balling and your ingredients measuring with a scale like this. Another option is a digital scale like this one. Digital scales have advantages in that they're often more accurate, easier to see the measurements, but also some scales even have technology built into them, so you can do things like use baker's percentage to measure your ingredients versus a percent of flour rather than just going off grams or ounces. So a digital scale is a really good investment as well. So an essential part of baking pizza at home, of course, is making dough, and to make dough you need a good stand mixer. Now, many times people start out with the kind of mixer that you buy in a department store, but as soon as you make large batches of dough, you're going to end up having to make, you're going to need a mixer that can handle that. And pizza dough is particularly difficult with mixers in that they have to be very strong because of the flexibility of the dough. So here's some commercial options for people who are making large batches of dough at home. This is an Eventco, which is one of the best ones that you can get that's relatively inexpensive compared to what you would pay for a large KitchenAid, for example, but it's designed for commercial use, and it would really do a great job with pizza. So if you're getting serious about your pizza or you're making large batches, then this is a great option for something like that. Okay, so next we're going to talk about equipment that you might use during the actual baking process. So there's a couple of really key pieces of equipment that you'd want to have at your home. One of the things most people think about first is a pizza stone, and if you go to the store and buy a pizza kit, it always includes one. We have pizza stones here. This is a 15-inch pizza stone. This could determine the size of your pizza, so if you want to get a larger one, you might want a 16 or 17-inch pizza stone. Make sure the pizza stone you purchase fits in your oven before you take it home. But these are useful for creating a lot of heat at the bottom of the pizza where the crust touches, and the theory is that that held heat will help the oven spring or help the pizza rise quickly when it starts to bake. However, I'm going to break convention a little bit and share that I don't think pizza stones are very effective. In fact, I found that you can only bake one pizza because all of the heat quickly goes out of the stone, and if you want to make a second pizza, you have to wait for that stone to come back up to temperature. In addition, most of the stones that are on the market are thin and aren't going to hold as much heat as you'd actually need to bake a pizza in your home oven in the way that you would imagine. So what I like to use instead are pizza screens, which we also have here at the restaurant store. Pizza screens have a lot of advantages over pizza stones, and I love to use them. There are many sizes of pizza screens, but they basically look like this. They're round with a screen in the middle, and it holds the pizza on top, and you put those in the oven. This can be used during pizza preparation. If you're making multiple pizzas at once, for example, your pizza can rest on this screen while you top it, and you won't be sticking or having any issues like that because this whole thing goes in the oven with your pizza. It's also completely perforated, so the air from your oven can hit the pizza on the bottom and the top at the same time, allowing a terrific bake and a wonderful advantage to this over a pizza stone. So I highly recommend pizza screens. They're very inexpensive, and they go a long way in the home pizza kitchen. Okay, for those of you who like to bake deep dish pizza, there's another essential item you can find at the restaurant store, and that's a pizza pan. There are several kinds of pans. Here's an example of a medium-sized one. You can see this one's about 1.5 inches deep, and this is used for deep dish pizza. Now this pan is this is a steel pan. It hasn't been seasoned, so before you use a pan like this, you'd want to spray oil on it and allow it to be baked in your oven. It'll start to turn a patina color or black, and that allows it to be non-stick. Some pans come already treated with a non-stick surface, but the ones that come like this need to be seasoned. Now this is one type of deep dish pan. There are more shallow pans like this. This one's about 3/4 of an inch deep, and that will affect how much of the depth of dough that you have in your pizza. So when I make my Chicago style pizza, these are the kind of pans I use. Either one of these would be just fine. Now, in addition to a deep dish pan, you'll also need a pair of pliers to hold that pan, and that's because those pans are heavy, especially with a large pizza inside of them. So this allows you to grip the edge of the pan while you remove the pizza from the pan. I highly recommend these if you're going to buy pizza pans. Otherwise, you're going to either screw up your pizza or worse, drop it. And these come in really handy for that. So for those of you who have decided to invest in a brick oven or a high temperature pizza oven like the Blackstone pizza oven, you're going to need some extra equipment that you wouldn't otherwise need. One of those things is the iconic pizza peel. At the restaurant store, they have lots of different kinds of pizza peels. This is a very large pizza peel. This one is actually designed to prepare the pizza directly on and then slide the pizza into the oven. It can be tricky to learn how to use a peel, and that's part of why brick oven pizza making is a little harder. But this is a wooden peel that's designed for making your pizza on it and then sliding that pizza into the oven. There are also metal pizza peels that are the same size. This one again is for pizza preparations. You can tell by the size of it. This will limit how big your pizza can actually be. So you want to purchase a peel that's large enough for the biggest pizza you want to make in your oven. This peel would be laid down on your countertop. You'd prep your pizza here, and then you'd be placing this into the oven. And this is a metal version of the wood one, and they're very similar. You'll also find usually a smaller pizza peel like this in a home pizza oven, and that's because these are used to get pizzas out of the oven. So once the pizza's been baked, you don't need such a large peel to get it out. You can just slide the smaller guy in and pull that pizza out. You can also use these for positioning pizzas. If you have a large brick oven and you've got to move pizzas around or spin them in the oven, a smaller peel with a larger handle like this can be really useful for that. Another piece of equipment that could be very useful for those of you who own high temperature ovens is a pizza oven brush. They come in a couple of different shapes and sizes. There are several here that are basically metal bristle brushes that are used for cleaning the oven surface between pizzas. This is really important because the peel requires you to use flour on the bottom of your pizza. And when you transfer that pizza into the oven, a lot of that flour stays behind and begins to burn. So if you don't want the flavor of that burnt flour to be touching the next pizza that comes in, you need to clean your oven out in between bakes, and that's what these are for. And they come in really handy for that. Now let's talk about a couple of pieces of equipment that you'll use when it's ready to serve your pizza. So there's a couple of key things. First of all, you probably want to invest in a pizza pan. They're inexpensive and they make it really convenient for serving your pizza to your guests. Just keep in mind, as soon as you put a pizza on a serving tray, the moisture from the crust is going to begin to make the pizza soggy. So if you want to avoid that, sometimes you could just put a piece of parchment paper under the pizza on top of the serving tray. You get the advantage of having a serving tray as well as not having a moisture issue. You can also cut on these trays, which will over time damage the trays, but it provides a nice hard surface for cutting. The only cutter that will work on a tray like this is a circle cutter. You can't use rocker cutters on the tray because of the edges that they have on them. Let's now talk about the two kinds of cutters for your pizza. Once it comes out of the oven, you've got to cut it into slices, and there's a couple ways to do that. The traditional way is to use a circular cutter like this, and these are great. Just keep in mind that the larger the cutter wheel, the easier time you'll have cutting the pizza, and the less the toppings will actually stick to the wheel. If you have a small cutter, you can make a big mess of a nice pizza, so buy one that has a nice large cutting wheel on it. An even better way to cut pizza, in my opinion, is to use what's called a rocker cutter. These are half circle shaped cutters that you hold with both hands, and if you have a flat surface that your pizza's on, you can quickly cut your pizza like this by rocking the blade across the pizza. It makes a really nice clean cut, and it's very fast once you get used to it. So I highly recommend a rocker cutter as well. Well, that's it for our trip to the equipment store. I hope you found some of those pieces of information useful, and I hope it's helped you make a selection of equipment for your pizza kitchen. I look forward to seeing you next time on Pizza Class.